Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to jump right into a really core concept in MongoDB, collections. We'll look at how they stack up against what you might already know from the SQL world, and then we'll get into how to create them, including a pretty special type for some very specific jobs. Let's get into it.
So if you're coming over from a relational database background, your whole world is probably built around tables, rows, and columns. And that's a great foundation. But when you step into MongoDB, the vocabulary changes just a little bit. So what's our new frame of reference?
All right, let's start with the absolute basics. We're going to build this new mental model from the ground up, and it's easier than you think.
And here it is, the most important analogy to get you started. Just think of a collection as the new home for your data, exactly like a table in a relational database. If you can lock in this mental bridge right now, everything else is going to click into place so much faster.
This slide really lays it all out, kind of like a translation guide. What you called a database, well, it's still a database. Easy enough, right? But your table is now what we call a collection, and a record, or a row, is now a document. So instead of thinking about tables full of records, you're now working with collections full of documents. That's really the core shift.
Okay, now that we've got the lingo down, let's get our hands dirty. How do you actually make a collection? Well, it turns out MongoDB gives you a couple of ways to do it, and one of them is, honestly, surprisingly easy.
And that's the natural next question, isn't it? You're probably thinking, okay, show me the create table command, where I have to define all my columns and data types before I can do anything.
Well, here's one of the first really cool differences you'll notice. You don't always have to. If you try to insert a document into a collection that doesn't even exist yet, MongoDB doesn't throw an error. It just says, oh, okay, you need that collection? I'll just create it for you. And it does it right on the fly. No need to define a schema up front. It's awesome for getting up and running fast.
But sometimes you want more control. Maybe you need to set up some specific options right from the get-go. And for that, you can absolutely create a collection explicitly. All you do is use the db.createCollection command and give it a name, like person here. And then you can immediately check that it's there with show collections. So you know for sure everything is set up just right before you start adding data.
So we have our standard collections, which are super flexible and will cover, 99% of your needs. But MongoDB also has these specialized tools in its toolbox for very specific jobs. Let's take a look at one of the most interesting ones, capped collections.
Okay, so what in the world makes this type of collection so special? And what kind of specific use case is it actually built for?
I want you to picture a conveyor belt that has a fixed length. New items get placed on one end, and as they move along, once that belt is totally full, the oldest items just fall off the other side to make room. That's a capped collection. It has a fixed size, and when it hits that limit, it automatically starts overriding the oldest data. This is absolutely perfect for things like storing recent log messages or any kind of data where you really only care about the latest stuff. And creating one is just a little tweak on the command we already saw. You still use db.createCollection, but this time you pass in a configuration object. The most important part is setting capped to true. Then you have to tell it how big to be, either with a size in bytes or a max number of documents it can hold. Now, this self-managing behavior is really powerful, but it's not a free lunch. Like with any specialized tool, you really need to be aware of the trade-offs and limitations before you decide to use it. You can probably already imagine how useful this would be for high-volume log data, where you just want to keep the most recent entries. But what's the catch? What are you giving up in order to get this cool automatic overwrite behavior? There are three really big ones to keep in your back pocket. First, you can't shard them. That means they're stuck on a single server, so they aren't great for massive distributed datasets. Second, you can't use the $out operator to pipe aggregation results into them. And third, and this is a big one, you can't manually delete documents. The only way data ever gets removed is when it gets old and is automatically overwritten. They are truly a write and forget kind of deal.
So you're basically trading some flexibility for this really high-performance auto-managing behavior. Knowing these limitations, the real question becomes, what problem in your application could this very unique tool solve?
And that's our look at MongoDB collections, from the everyday basics all the way to the specialized capped collection. If this explainer helped you connect a few dots, definitely be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.